Hi, I'm Lisa Niven Kelly for Beaducation, and today I'm going to show you how to make these great wrapped crystal cup chain bracelets. So we're going to make one on a cuff, and we're going to use 24 gauge for both. This one on the cuff, we're going to use 4.5 feet, and when we move to the bangle, we're going to use 5 feet, again, of 24 gauge. But I want to encourage you to play with that. Change the gauge if you want, add more wraps, and I'm going to wrap. Just keep in mind that you're going to need more wire if you use a thinner wire or if you add in more wraps than I do. So play with that, have a good time, and let's get started. To make these wrapped cuffs, we're going to use chain nose plier, a wire cutter, bracelet bending pliers to shape the cuff, a screw down hole punch. Now you want to use this over the hole punch plier because it's stronger and it will punch through the flat wire easier. Here I've got a piece of flat wire that is sold in a 6-inch length and it's already rounded on the edge. It doesn't come with holes in it. I've already punched those, so ignore that. You can also use our flat wire that comes per foot, but this little pre-cut guy is a perfect size. It's WIR 041 and we're going to use 24 gauge wire and crystal cup chain. The one thing I want to point out is I've oxidized this 24 gauge wire before we start because it's easier for the camera to pick up the detail. So just take that if you want the oxidized look and coil it up and put it into liver of sulfur to make it nice and dark. Here we have two cuff bracelets. This one here has been oxidized in liver of sulfur after it was made, and this one was left shiny. But you see how they're in that classic comfortable cuff shape. That's our first step to do with our flat wire. Actually, the first step is to punch holes, which I've already done, and I've done that using the smaller side of the screw down hole punch. Just put it in there, screw it down, and pop the hole. Make sure you line it up in the right spot. So now we need to shape this to fit on our wrist. To do that, you use nylon jaw pliers. You see that nice groove in there? And I'm just going to do it real quick. If you want to see how to do this even more, go check out our free class, Say It On Your Wrist, where I really work with this flat wire a bunch and do all kinds of fun different things and go a little more into depth in shaping. But right now I'm just kind of biting away at it. You see how it's starting to form like a big C. You can start anywhere on the bracelet and don't be gentle. Just shape, shape, shape all the way to the end. You'll be left with this. The bracelet provides that. Now we're going to grab just a little bit at the end there and just pull this part in more, giving a little bit more of a sharp angle there on the side and on the other side. I do a little bit from each and I'll go back and work on the other side a little bit more. So I'm just being really gentle here, not trying to create a crease, but letting the bend happen right here. I'm bracing this with my hand and this with the plier and bringing that in almost there. Maybe one more on this side. See how we're getting close? Now I kind of want to just bring these outside edges in a little more muscle on that one. There we go. I would probably mess with this just a little more on that outside to even it up. Okay, now once we get the crystals wrapped on top of here, there we go, it's going to give it even more strength because this wire is a little bit light. I think it would hold up, but once we get all that on there, it's going to be nice and strong. So let's start the wrapping. Now I'm going to start wrapping this crystal cup chain right on top of the cuff. And this cup chain is sold by the foot, so I just have a foot worth here, and I'm just going to work right off of the foot. If you want to like lay it out exactly on here and measure it, I kind of caution against that because it might shrink up a little more than you expected. But if you do need to cut it, I would just say cut it like 2 lengths too long, just in case, because it's kind of great to have more than to run out. All right, so I'm going to bring in my wire, and this is 4.5 feet of 24 gauge. And I'm going to start by running a tail up this little end hole right here, and I'm going to run up about an inch. And I'm just going to wrap it around, and I'm going to come and wrap around that hole a couple times. I'm going to use my chain nose to help me out here. Just bend the wire and get it up through the hole. And grab it and kind of cinch it down. See, like that? We want the wire to stay on the outside though. And I'm going to do this one more time and then trim it. It's a little tricky here. I might have to turn it over so I can see where that tip of wire is going. There we go. See, it's poking up there enough so I can grab it and pinch it through. Maybe I should have left a little more. I don't think that was quite an inch. So I pulled it really tight so those two wraps are just right on the end. Do you see that? And then I'm going to take my cutter and I'm going to trim as close as I can right there so that the tip of the tail is sort of sitting in the hole. It won't catch on anything and it won't pull on anything. That's why you want to use a nice pointed flush cutter like these 7223s by Tronics. Trim it and then it's hiding in the hole. Okay, so now is the fun part. Honestly, tying on and off the wire takes the longest amount of time, but that wasn't too bad. And the wrapping is quick. Okay, so this is gonna be a little crazy because I usually do this standing up. I've got all this wire, it's gonna kind of be flopping around, but I'm gonna get it started. So I lay the first crystal right next to those wraps and right next to my hole and get the wire wrapping up and over the link between the two. And there's a perfect amount of space between each crystal to put 3 wraps. See that? See if I can get a little closer for you. 3 wraps. Now I'm just going to shift the wire over and do the next section. And let me tell you, that's as easy as it is. I'll show you a couple tricks as I move along. Shift over and do the next section. So when I go from this spot over to this spot to wire wrap it, I shift the wire over and then do the wrap. And that's because then it looks like these wire wraps are just 3 next to each other rather than one side of one of the wraps is pulled to the side. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, but you'll see it once you get started. 1, 2, 3. So I am just going to keep on wrapping all the way to the end, and I'll come back when we're ready to tie off the other end. All right, so I wrapped up the whole thing, and that wrapping part goes really fast. So cranked it out. And now I'm at the point where I need to trim the cup chain and I need to decide, do I cut back here or do I cut here? If I cut and leave this last crystal on there, it's going to cover the hole. I'm not going to be able to get my wire in it. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut right there. I'm going to use the back of my cutters because on these nice Tronics, I want to preserve the tip and it leaves me this space right here. So I'm going to come over and put my last wraps right here. And where I've put 3 before, it looks like I have a little more space on this one end, so I'm going to put 4. Okay, and now I do have extra wire, which is good. I don't want to run out. I'm going to trim it to about a little over an inch, and I'm going to tie off like I did in the beginning. I'm going to come up from behind. Oops, stay on this side. Cinch it down. It cinches down pretty easily. That would be hard to do with a thicker wire. Come around and back up. Where's my hole? There it is. Nice and tight. Last time around. If you're nervous about pulling to cinch it because you're worried it's gonna like break your wire, then you can kind of, hang on, let me get in here. There we go. Nope, I want to go on this side. There we go. You can kind of like push it through, so you can curl it through with the tip of your pliers and then pull. Okay, so that's nice and tight. See, it's nice and flush on there. So with the very tip of my cutters, just going to come right there, try to get it down in the hole a little bit so that the tip of the wire is hiding in the hole. So in this particular one, like I said, I used pre-oxidized wire. So let me show you how great it looks once you polish it up. So I can come along the side. You can see that.
Now to get in between the stones, I take my Pro Polish pad and bend it and just sort of get in there. See how now you can see the detail a little better. You can also use the edge of the pad. It's got a little compound on there that'll do the job. Just go through in every little crease for this particular one and get the sides and get underneath. You can also wrap this crystal chain onto a finished bangle and it just looks so great on your wrist. So we have these bangles. This is a silver plated flat bangle bracelet, and we also have it in gold plated. I'm going to show you just a couple things that are different when you go to wrap the chain onto this already rounded, no opening bangle. I'm going to start by laying the crystal cup chain right on top of the flat part of the bangle here. I'm going to use 5 feet of 24 gauge wire. And I'm not going to start at the very end. I'm going to leave a couple links, let my wire come around and tie off. I don't want 2 ends of the wires to overlap with 2 ends of the crystals. So I kind of want the ends to tie off over here. So I'm just going to leave like 4 links over here. And I'm going to start by just getting it tacked on. It's a little wonky at first. Look at that tail to go. Yeah, there it goes. Just get on there. All right, and I'll deal with that tail later. So I'm just going to do the regular wraps like we did on the cuff. The difference is though now that this big, huge, long wire has to come through the middle every time, which is going to slow down the process only slightly. So instead of taking the tail and poking it through, because you'll end up with kinks, just let this one part come through the first part of the wire and pull it through that way. Okay. And again, just like with the cuff, you want to have 3 wraps. Well, that's what fits well. You want to have 3 wraps right in between each link. Okay, I'm going to pull it through. So just be careful when you're pulling the wire through that you're not letting it kink up anywhere and you're not letting it over harden. Be sort of gentle with it. I like to do this standing up because then it's not hitting the table too much or getting caught on anything. So you just pull through like that each time and wrap. So let me come even closer for this next one. And I'm going to continue all the way around, and then I'll come back and show you how to tie off these ends. All right, so I've done the wrapping all the way around the bangle, and I've come around now where I have to figure out where to cut my chain here. And it looks like I'm going to want to cut it right there. So I'm going to hold my thumb there to remind me and cut the back of my cutters. All right. Now this is my first tail. I'm just going to push it out of the way, and I'm just going to continue wrapping here over these 3 spots, and I'm left with about 1 foot, almost 6 inches of wire, which is perfect. So now I'm just going to come and wrap between the 2 ends here. Just going to put a couple of wraps, 3 to match what I've been doing all along. And then when I come around to go on the next link between these 2, it's going to tack down that end. And nobody is gonna even know the difference. Right there. Actually, I pulled that over a little too much. There we go. Right there. See? Now the 2 ends are tied down. And I've got 2 spaces here to tie off my wire. So I'm gonna fill this one. I'm going to go into the second space. It's a little different than tying off on the cuff because we have that nice hole to tie off on. What I'm going to do here is form my wraps. This one's a little tight, so I'm just going to do 2. And I'm going to come up and around here, and I'm going to trim the wire and bend it and kind of kink it down with my chain nose right at this spot, right kind of next to the crystal, next to the other wraps, and hope that it just stays nice and snug in that spot. Can you see here? Right there. I'm going to kind of burnish it down. Looks like the end came around a little bit, which is fine. You burnish it down. Once it's down and hidden, rub your finger all over and make sure you can't feel it. And I can't feel it. I can't even see it. So now I'm going to do the same thing with my tail. I'm going to come up. my first tail here. Snip it right in there. And squeeze it down with my chain nose. I don't want to push on any of the crystals. I'm just, there it goes. Just kind of tucking it away. Actually, I want it just smushing a little. Great. So there, I don't feel it. And everybody is wrapped on here, and look how pretty they look together. This one over here I have done with the tiny crystals. You can see that there. Looks like diamonds. And this one here, get this out of the background. Look how great these all look together. Fancy. This one here, I did a bunch of messy wraps. Let's see if you can see that there. It's about 6 wraps in between each crystal, and it's not all organized. It's just sort of messy, and I used pre-oxidized wire, polished them up, and this is actually one of my favorites.